The Heart of the New Thought by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. Publisher's Preface. This book is noteworthy as an interpretation of New Thought. That which was vague, mystic, unreal, has become, in the hands of Mrs. Wilcox, a lovable philosophy of simplest construction. The backbone of this philosophy is the power of right thought. Startling as are some of the tenets expressed, they are probably true here and now. It is possible that the very simplicity of this book will encourage careless criticism from those who believe that genius and ambiguity are twin. But Mrs. Wilcox is ever the voice of the people. What she says is practical. What she thinks is clear. What she feels is plain. Let the people judge this book. Section 1 of The Heart of the New Thought by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. Let the past go. Do not begin the new year by recounting to yourself or others all your losses and sorrows. Let the past go. Should some good friend present you with material for a lovely garment, would you insult her by throwing it aside and describing the beautiful garments you had worn out in past times? The new year has given you the fabric for a fresh start in life. Why dwell upon the events which have gone, the joys, blessings, and advantages of the past? Do not tell me it is too late to be successful or happy. Do not tell me you are sick or broken in spirit. The spirit cannot be sick or broken, because it is of God. It is your mind which makes your body sick. Let the spirit assert itself and demand health and hope and happiness in this new year. Forget the money you have lost, the mistakes you have made, the injuries you have received, the disappointments you have experienced. Real sorrow, the sorrow which comes from the death of dear ones, or some great cross well borne, you need not forget. But think of these things as sent to enrich your nature and to make you more human and sympathetic. You are missing them if you permit yourself instead to grow melancholy and irritable. It is weak and unreasonable to imagine destiny has selected you for special suffering. Sorrow is no respecter of persons. Say to yourself with the beginning of this year that you are going to consider all your troubles as an education for your mind and soul, and that out of the experiences which you have passed through, you are going to build a noble and a splendid character and a successful career. Do not tell me you are too old. Age is all imagination. Ignore years, and they will ignore you. Eat moderately, and bathe freely in water as cold as nature's rainfall. Exercise thoroughly and regularly. Be alive from crown to toe. Breathe deeply, filling every cell of the lungs for at least 5 minutes, morning and night. And when you draw in long, full breaths, believe you are inhaling health, wisdom, and success. Anticipate good health. If it does not come at once, consider it a mere temporary delay, and continue to expect it. Regard any physical ailment as a passing inconvenience, no more. Never for an instant believe you are permanently ill or disabled. The young men of France are studying alchemy, hoping to learn the secret of the transmutation of gold. If you will study your own spirit and its limitless powers, you will gain a greater secret than any alchemist ever held, a secret which shall give you whatever you desire. Think of your body as the silver jewel box, your mind as the silk lining, your spirit as the gem. Keep the box burnished and clear of dust, but remember always that the jewel within is the precious part of it. Think of yourself as on the threshold of unparalleled success. A whole, clear, glorious year lies before you. In a year, you can regain health, fortune, restfulness, happiness. Push on. Achieve, achieve. The sowing of the seed. When you start in the new thought, do not expect sudden illumination. Do not imagine that you are to become perfectly well, perfectly cheerful, successful, and a healer in a few days. Remember, all growth is slow. Mushrooms spring up in a night, but oaks grow with deliberation and endure for centuries. Mental and spiritual power must be gained by degrees. If you attained maturity before you entered this field of new thought, it is folly to suppose a complete transformation of your whole being will take place in a week, a month, or a year. All you can reasonably look for is a gradual improvement, just as you might do if you were attempting to take up music or a science. The new thought is a science, the science of right thinking. But the brain cells, which have been shaped by the old thoughts of despondency and fear, cannot all at once be reformed. It will be a case of try again. Make your daily assertions, I am love, health, wisdom, cheerfulness, power for good, prosperity, success, usefulness, opulence. Never fail to assert these things at least twice a day. 20 times is better. But if you do not attain to all immediately, if your life does not at once exemplify your words, let it not discourage you. The saying of the words is the watering of the seeds. After a time, they will begin to sprout. After a longer time, to cover the barren earth with grain. After a still longer time, to yield a harvest. If you have been accustomed to feeling prejudices and dislikes easily, you will not all at once find it easy to illustrate your assertion, I am love. If you have indulged yourself in thoughts of disease, the old aches and pains will intrude even while you say, I am health. If you have groveled in fear and a belief that you were born to poverty and failure, courage and success and opulence will be of a slow growth. Yet they will grow and materialize as surely as you insist and persist. Declare they are yours, right in the face of the worst disasters. There is nothing so confuses and frustrates misfortune as to stare it down with hopeful, unflinching eyes. If you waken some morning in the depths of despondency and gloom, do not say to yourself, I may as well give up this effort to adopt the new thought. I have made a failure of it evidently. Instead, sit down quietly and assert calmly that you are cheerfulness, hope, courage, faith, and success. Realize that your despondency is only temporary, an old habit which is reasserting itself, but over which you will gradually gain the ascendancy. Then go forth into the world and busy yourself in some useful occupation, and before you know, it is on the way. Hope will creep into your heart, and the gray cloud will lift from your mind. Physical pains will loosen their hold, and conditions of poverty will change to prosperity. Your mind is your own to educate and direct. You can do it by the aid of the Spirit, but you must be satisfied to work slowly. Be patient and persistent. End of section 2. Old clothes. As you go over your wardrobe in the spring or fall, do not keep any old, useless, or even questionable garments for fear you might need them another year. Give them to the ragman, or send them to the county or city poorhouse. There is nothing that will keep you in a rut of shabbiness more than clinging to old clothes. It is useless to say that you cannot afford new garments. It is because you have harped upon this idea that you are still in straitened circumstances. You believe neither in God or yourself. Possibly you were brought up to think yourself a mere worm of earth, born to poverty and sorrow. If you were, it will of course require a continued effort to train your mind to the new thought, the thought of your divine inheritance of all God's vast universe of wealth. But you can do it. Begin by giving away your old clothes. There may be people, poor relations, or some struggling mother of half-clad children, to whom your old garments will seem like new raiment, and to whom they will bring hope and happiness. As a rule, it is not well to give people your discarded clothing. It has a tendency to lower their self-respect and to make them look to you instead of to themselves for support. It all depends upon whom the people are and how you do it. If you can find employment for them and arouse their hope and self-confidence and ambition, it is better than carloads of clothing or furniture or provisions. But little children suffering from cold, or hard-working, overtaxed men and women will not be harmed and may be temporarily cheered and encouraged by your gifts. No matter if you still need your frayed-out garments, do not keep them. Your thoughts of poverty and trouble have impregnated them so that you will continue to produce the same despondent mind stuff while you wear these garments. Get rid of them, and believe that you are to soon procure fresh becoming raiment. Rouse all your energies and go straight ahead with that purpose in mind. You will be surprised to find how soon the opportunity presents itself for you to obtain what you need. There is new strength, repose of mind, and inspiration in fresh apparel. God gives nature new garments every season. We are a part of nature. He gives us the qualities and the opportunities to obtain suitable covering for our changing needs, if we believe in the one and use the other. When I read of a wealthy man who boasts that he has worn one hat 7 years, or a woman in affluent circumstances who has worn one bonnet for various seasons, I feel sorry for their ignorance and ashamed of their penuriousness. Look at the apple tree with its delicate spring drapery, its luxurious summer foliage, its autumn richness of coloring, its winter draperies of white. Surely the Creator did not intend the tree to have more variety than man. The tree trusts and grows and takes storm and sun as divinely sent, and believes in its right to new apparel, and it comes. It will come to you if you do the same. End of section 3. High Noon. Every woman who passes 30 ought to keep her brain, heart, and mind alive and warm with human sympathy and emotion. She ought to interest herself in the lives of others and make her friendship valuable to the young. She should keep her body supple and avoid losing the lines of grace, and she should select some study or work to occupy her spare hours and to lend a zest to the coming years. Every woman in the comfortable walks in life can find time for such a study. No woman of tact, charm, refinement, and feeling need ever let her husband, unless she has married a clod, become indifferent or commonplace in his treatment of her. Man reflects to an astonishing degree woman's sentiments for him. Keep sentiment alive in your own heart, madam, and in the heart of your husband. If he sees that other men admire you, he will be more alert to the necessity of remaining your lover. Take the happy, safe medium path between a gray and a gay life by keeping it radiant and bright. Read and think and talk of cheerful, hopeful, interesting subjects. Avoid small gossip and be careful in your criticism of neighbors. Sometimes we must criticize, but speak to people whose faults you feel a word of counsel may amend, not of them to others. Make your life after it reaches its noon glorious with sunlight, rich with harvests, and bright with color. Be alive in mind, heart, and body. Be joyous without giddiness, loving without silliness, attractive without being flirtatious, attentive to others' needs without being officious, and instructive without too great a display of erudition. Be a noble, loving, lovable woman. It is never too late in life to make a new start. No matter how small a beginning may be, it is so much begun for a new incarnation if it is cut off here by death. If I were 100 years old and in possession of my faculties, I would not hesitate to undertake a new enterprise which offered a hope of bettering my condition. Thought is eternal in its effects, and every hopeful thought which enters the mind sets vibrations in motion, which shall help minds millions of miles distant and lives yet unborn. It is folly to mourn over a failure to provide opportunities and luxuries for children. We have only to look at the children of the rich, to see how little enduring happiness money gives, and how seldom great advantages result in great characters. The majority of the really great people of the world, in all lines of achievement, have sprung from poverty. I do not mean from pauper homes, but from the homes where only the mere necessities of life could be obtained. and where early in their youth the children felt it necessary to go into the world and make their own way. Self-dependence, self-reliance, energy, ambition were all developed in this way. How rarely do we find these qualities in the children of wealth? How rarely do great philosophers, great statesmen, great thinkers, and great characters develop from the wealthy classes? But I believe the worst thing possible for a human soul is to be born to wealth. It is an obstacle to greatness which few are strong enough to surmount, and it rarely results in happiness to the recipient. End of section 4. Obstacles. However great the obstacles between you and your goal may be or have been, do not lay the blame of your failure upon them. Other people have succeeded in overcoming just as great obstacles. Remove such hindrances from the path for others if you can, or tell them a way to go around. Even lead them a little distance and cheer them on. But so far as you yourself are concerned, do not stop to excuse any delinquency or half-heartedness or defeat by the plea of circumstance or environment. The great nature makes its own environment and dominates circumstance. It all depends upon the amount of force in your own soul. While you apply this rule to yourself and make no scapegoat of fate, you must have consideration for the weakness of others, and you must try and better the conditions of the world as you go along. You are robust and possessed of all your limbs. You can mount over the great boulder which has fallen in the road to success, and go on your way to your goal all the stronger for the experience. But behind you comes a one-legged man, a blind man, a man bowed to the earth with a heavy burden which he cannot lay down. It will require weeks, months, years of effort on their part to climb over that rock which you surmounted in a few hours. So it is right and just for you to call other strong ones to your aid and roll the boulder away or blast it out of the path. That is just exactly the way you should think of the present industrial conditions. In spite of them, the strong, well-poised, earnest, and determined soul can reach any desired success. But there are boulders in the road which do not belong there, boulders which cause hundreds of the pilgrims who are lame or blind or burdened to fall by the wayside and perish. It is your duty to aid in removing these obstacles and in making the road a safe and clear thoroughfare for all who journey. Do not sit down by the roadside and say you have been hindered by these difficulties. That is to confess yourself weak. Do not mount over them and rush to your goal and say coldly to the throngs behind you, "Oh, everybody can climb over that rock who really tries. Didn't I?" That is to announce yourself selfish and unsympathetic. No doubt the lame, the blind, and the burdened could attain the goal despite the rocks if they were fired by a consciousness of the divine force within them. That consciousness can achieve all things under all circumstances. But there will always be thousands of pilgrims toiling wearily toward the goal who have not come to this realization. If there are unjust, unfair, and unkind restrictions placed about them, See to it that you do all in your power to right what is wrong, but never wait to attain your own success because of these restrictions or obstacles. Believe absolutely in your own God-given power to overcome anything and everything. Think of yourself as performing miracles with God's aid. Desire success so intensely that you attract, if as the magnet attracts the steel. Help to adjust things as you go along, but never for a moment believe that the lack of adjustment can cause you to fail. End of section 5. Thought force. Your spirit and mine are both part of the stupendous cause. We have always been and always will be, first in one form, then in another. Every thought, word, and deed is helping decide your next place in the Creator's magnificent universe. You will be beautiful or ugly, wise or ignorant, fortunate or unfortunate, according to what use you make of yourself here and now. Unselfish thoughts, training your mind to desire only universal good, the cultivation of the highest attributes, such as love, honesty, gratitude, faith, reverence, and goodwill, all mean a life of usefulness and happiness in another incarnation, as well as satisfaction and self-respect in this sphere. Even if you escape the immediate results of the opposite course of action here, you must face the law of cause and effect in the next state. It is inevitable. God, the maker of all things, does not change his laws. As you sow, you reap. As a man thinketh, so is he. There is no revenge in God's mind. He simply makes his laws, and we work our destinies for good or ill according to our adherence to them or violation of them. Each one of us is a needed part of his great plan. Let each soul say, "He has need of me, or I would not be. I am here to strengthen the plan." Remember that always in your most discouraged hours. The Creator makes no mistakes. There is a divine purpose in your being on earth. Think of yourself as a necessary to the great design. It is an inspiring thought. And then consider the immensity of the universe and how accurately the Maker planned it all. Do not associate with pessimists. If you are unfortunate enough to be the son or daughter, husband or wife of one, put cotton, either real or spiritual, in your ears, and shut out the poison words of discouragement and despondency. No tie of blood or law should compel you to listen to what means discomfort and disaster to you. Get out and away into the society of optimistic people. Before you go, insist on saying cheerful, hopeful, and bright things, sowing the seed, as it were, in the mental ground behind you, but do not sit down to see it grow. Never feel that it is your duty to stay closely and continuously in the atmosphere of the despondent. You might as well think it your duty to stay in deep water with one who would not make the least effort to swim. Get on shore and throw out a lifeline, but do not remain and be dragged under. If you find anyone determined to talk failure and sickness and misfortune and disaster, walk away. You would not permit the dearest person on earth to administer slow poison to you if you knew it. Then why think it your duty to take mental potions which paralyze your courage and kill your ambition? Despondency is one phase of immorality. It is blasphemous and insult to the Creator. You are justified in avoiding the people who send you from their presence with less hope and force and strength to cope with life's problems than when you met them. Do what you can to change their current of thought, but do not associate intimately with them until they have learned to keep silent, at least if they cannot speak hopefully. Learn how to walk, how to poise your body, how to breathe, how to hold your head, how to focus your mind on things of universal importance. Believe your tender, loving thoughts and wishes for good to all humanity have power to help the struggling souls of earth to rise to higher and better conditions. No matter how limited your sphere of action may seem to you, and how small your town appears on the map, if you develop your mental and spiritual forces through love thoughts, you can be a power to move the world along. Rise up and realize your strength. Not only will you be more useful and happy, but you will grow more beautiful and keep your youth. End of section 6. Opulence. Do not go through the world talking poverty and asking everyone you deal with to show you special consideration because you are poor and unfortunate. If you do this with an idea of saving a few dollars here and there, you will always have to do it, because you are creating poverty conditions by your constant assertions. It is a curious fact that the people who are always demanding consideration in money matters demand the best that is going at the same time. I have known a woman to make a plea for cut prices in a boarding house because she was so poor, yet she wanted the sunniest room and the best location the house afforded. It is the charity patients who make the most complaint of a physician's skill or a nurse's attention. If you cannot afford to do certain things or buy certain objects, don't. But when you decide, you must decide too that you will pay the price and make no whining plea of poverty. There are two extremes of people in the world, one as distasteful as the other. One is represented by the man who boasts of the costliness of every possession and invites the whole world to behold his opulence and expenditure. His clothes, his house, his servants, his habits seem no different to the observer from his neighbors, yet according to his story they cost 10 times the amount. The other extreme is the man who dresses well, lives well, enjoys all the comforts and the pleasures of his associates, yet talks poverty continually and expects the entire community to show him consideration in consequence. Another thing to avoid is the role of the chronically injured person. We all know him. He has a continual grievance. He has been cheated, abused, wronged, insulted, disappointed, and deceived. We wonder how or why he has managed to exist as we listen to the story of his troubles. No one ever treats him fairly, either in business or social life. everybody is ungrateful, unkind, selfish, and he could not be made to believe that these experiences were of his own making. All of us meet with occasional blows from fate in the form of insults or ingratitude or trickery from an unexpected source. But if we get nothing else but those disappointing experiences from life, we may rest assured that the fault lies somewhere in ourselves. We are not sending out the right kind of mental stuff, or we would get better returns. You never can tell what your thoughts will do in bringing you hate or love, for thoughts are things, and their airy wings are swift as a carrier dove. They follow the law of the universe. Each thing must create its kind, and they speed over the track to bring you back whatever went out from your mind. In the main, we must of necessity get from humanity what we give to it. If we question our ability to win friends or love, people will also question it. If we doubt our own judgment and discretion in business, others will doubt it, and the shrewd and unprincipled will take the opportunity given by our doubts of ourselves to spring upon us. If in consequence we distrust every person we meet, we create an unwholesome and unfortunate atmosphere about ourselves, which will bring to us the unworthy and deceitful. Stand firm in the universe. Believe in yourself. Believe in others. If you make a mistake, consider it only an incident. If someone wrongs you, cheats, misuses, or insults you, let it pass as one of the lessons you had to learn, but do not imagine that you are selected by fate for only such lessons. Keep wholesome, hopeful, and sympathetic with the world at large, whatever individuals may do. Expect life to use you better every year, and it will not disappoint you in the long run, for life is what we make it. End of section 7. Eternity. Do you know what a wonderfully complicated thing a human being is? Every feature, every portion of your body, every motion you make reflects your mental organization. I know a woman past middle life who has always been on the opposite side of every question discussed in her presence. She was agnostic with the orthodox, reverential with the atheist, liberal with the narrow, bigoted with the liberal. Whatever belief anyone expressed on any subject, she invariably took the other extreme. She loved to disagree with her fellow men. It was her pastime. Now, to walk with that woman in silence is merely to carry on a wordless argument. You cannot regulate your steps so they will harmonize with hers. She will be just ahead or just behind you, and if you want to turn to the left, she pulls to the right. A promenade with her is more exhausting than a day's labor. She is not conscious of it, and would think anyone very unreasonable and unjust who told her of her peculiarities. I know a woman who all her life has been looking afar for happiness and peace and content, and has never found any of them, because she did not look in her own soul. She was a restless girl, and she married, believing in domestic life lay the goal of her dreams. But she was not happy there, and sighed for freedom. She wanted to move, and did move, once, twice, thrice, to different points of the United States. She was discontented with each change. She is today possessed of all comforts and luxuries which life can afford. Yet she is the same restless soul. She likes to read, but it is always the book which she does not possess, which she craves. If she is in the library, with shelves book-filled, she goes into the garret and hunts in old boxes for a book or a paper which has been cast aside. If she is in a picture gallery, she wants to go to the window and look out on the street. But when she is on the street, it bores her, and she longs to go in the house. If a member of the family is absent, she gets no enjoyment out of the society of those at home. Yet when that absent one returns, her mind strays elsewhere, seeking some imagined happiness not found here. I wonder if such souls ever find it, even in the spirit realm, or if they go on their seeking and always seeking something just beyond. It is a great gift to learn to enjoy the present, to get all there is out of it, and to think of today as a piece of eternity. Begin now to teach yourself this great art, if you have not thought of it before. To be able to enjoy heaven, one must learn first to enjoy earth. End of section 8. Morning influences. What do you think about the very first thing in the morning? Your thoughts during the first half hour of the morning will greatly influence the entire day. You may not realize this, but it is nevertheless a fact. If you set out with worry and depression and bitterness of soul toward fate or man, you are giving the keynote to a day of discords and misfortunes. If you think peace, hope, and happiness, you are sounding a note of harmony and success. The result may not be felt at once, but it will not fail to make itself evident eventually. Control your morning thoughts. You can do it. The first moment on waking, no matter what your mood, say to yourself, I will get all the comfort and pleasure possible out of this day, and I will do something to add to the measure of the world's happiness or well-being. I will control myself when tempted to be irritable or unhappy. I will look for the bright side of every event. Once you say these things over to yourself in a calm, earnest way, you will begin to feel more cheerful. The worries and troubles of the coming day will seem less colossal. Then say, I shall be given help to meet anything that comes today. Everything will be for the best. I shall succeed in whatever I undertake. I cannot fail. Do not let it discourage you if the moment you leave your room you encounter a trouble or a disaster. This usually happens. When we make any boasts, spiritually or physically, we are put to the test. The occult forces about us are not unlike human beings. When a schoolboy boasts of his strength and says he can lick any boy in school, he generally gets a chance to prove it. When we declare we are brave enough to overcome any fate, we find our strength put to the test at once. But that is all right. Prove your words to be true. Regard the troubles and cares you encounter as the punching bags of fate, given you to develop your spiritual muscle. Go at them with courage and keep to your morning resolve. By and by the troubles will lessen, and you will find yourself master of circumstances. End of section 9. The Philosophy of Happiness. There are natures born to happiness, just as there are born musicians, mechanics, and mathematicians. They are usually children who came into life under right prenatal conditions, that is, children conceived and born in love. The mother who thanks God for the little life she is about to bring to earth gives her child a more blessed endowment than if it were heir to a kingdom or a fortune. As the majority of people, however, born under civilized conditions, are unwelcome to their mothers, it is rarely we encounter one who has a birthright of happiness. Youth possesses a certain buoyancy and exhilaration which passes for happiness, until the real disposition of the individual asserts itself with the passing of time. Good health and strong vitality are great aids to happiness, yet that they, wealth and honors added, do not produce that much desired state of mind we have but to look about us to observe. One who is not born a musician needs to toil more assiduously to acquire skill in the art, however strong his desire or great his taste, than the natural genius. So the man not endowed with joyous impulses needs to set himself the task of acquiring the habit of happiness. I believe it can be done. To the sad or restless or discontented being, I would say, begin each morning by resolving to find something in the day to enjoy. Look in each experience which comes to you for some grain of happiness. You will be surprised to find how much that has seemed hopelessly disagreeable possesses either an instructive or an amusing side. There is a certain happiness to be found in the most disagreeable duty when you stop to realize that you are getting it out of the way. If it is one of those duties which has the uncomfortable habit of repeating itself continually, you can at least say you are learning patience and perseverance, which are two great virtues and essential to any permanent happiness in life. Do not anticipate the happiness of tomorrow, but discover it in today. Unless you are in the profound depths of some great sorrow, you will find it if you look for it. Think of yourself each morning as an explorer in a new realm. I know a man whose time is gold, and he carefully arranged his plans to take 3 hours for a certain pleasure. He lost his way and missed his pleasure, but was full of exuberant delight over his new experience. I saw places and met with adventures I might have missed my whole life. He was a true philosopher and optimist, and such a man gets the very kernel out of the nut of life. I know a woman who had since her birth every material blessing, health, wealth, position, travel, and a luxurious home. She was forever complaining of the cares and responsibilities of the latter. Finally, she prevailed upon the family to rent the home for a series of years and to live in hotels. Now she goes about posing as a martyr a homeless woman. It is impossible for such a selfishly perverted nature to know happiness. A child should be taught from its earliest life to find entertainment in every kind of condition or weather. If it hears its elders cursing and bemoaning a rainy day, the child's plastic mind is quick to receive the impression that a rainy day is a disaster. How much better to expatiate in its presence on the blessing of rain, and to teach it the enjoyment of all nature's varying moods, which other young animals feel. Happiness must come from within in order to respond to that which comes from without, just as there must be a musical ear and temperament to enjoy music. Cultivate happiness as an art or science. End of Section 10. A worn-out creed. I have a letter from an Orthodox Christian who says the only hope for humanity lies in the old-fashioned religion. Then he proceeds to tell me how carefully he has studied human nature in business, in social life, and in himself, and that he finds it all vile, selfish, sinful. Of course he does, because he studies it from a false and harmful standpoint, and looks for the worm of earth and the poor, miserable sinner, instead of the divine man. We find what we look for in this world. I have always been looking for the noble qualities in human beings, and I have found them. There are great souls all along the highway of life, and there are great qualities even in the people who seem common and weak to us ordinarily. One of the grandest souls I know is a man who served his term in prison for sins committed while in drink. He was not born bad. He simply drifted into bad company and formed bad habits. He paid the awful penalty of 5 years behind prison bars, but the divine man within him asserted itself, and today I have no friend I feel prouder to call that name. Mr. John L. Tate, Secretary of the Central Howard Association of Chicago, writes me regarding his knowledge of ex-convicts. According to my experience with a number of men of this class during the last 2 years, more than 90% of them are worthy of the most cordial support and assistance. If this can be said of men who have been criminals, surely humanity is not so vile as my Orthodox correspondent would have me believe. A Christian of that order ought to be put under restraint and not allowed to associate with mankind. He carries a moral malaria with him, which poisons the air. He suggests evil to minds which have not thought it. He is a dangerous hypnotist while pretending to be a disciple of Christ. The man who believes that all men are vicious, selfish, and immoral is projecting pernicious mind stuff into space, which is as dangerous to the peace of the community as dynamite bombs. The world has been kept back too long by this false, unholy, and blasphemous religion. It is not the religion of Christ. It is the religion of ignorant translators, ignorant readers. Thank God, its supremacy is past. A wholesome and holy religion has taken its place with the intelligent progressive minds of the day, a religion which says, I am all goodness, love, truth, mercy, health. I am a necessary part of God's universe. I am a divine soul, and only good can come through me or to me. God made me, and He could make nothing but goodness and purity and worth. I am the reflection of all His qualities. This is the new religion, yet it is older than the universe. It is God's own thought put into practical form. End of section 11. Common sense. If you are suffering from physical ills, ask yourself if it is not your own fault. There is scarcely one person in 100 who does not overeat or drink. I know an entire family who complain of gastric troubles, yet who keep the coffee pot continually on the range and drink large quantities of that beverage at least twice a day. No one can be well who does that. Almost every human ailment can be traced to foolish diet. Eat only 2 meals in 24 hours. If you are not engaged in active physical labor, make it 1 meal. Drink 2 or 3 or 4 quarts of milk at intervals during the day to supply good blood to the system. You will thrive upon it, and you will not miss the other 2 meals after the first week, and your ailments will gradually disappear. Meantime, if you are self-supporting, your bank account will increase. Think of the waste of money which goes into indigestible food. It is appalling when you consider it. Heaven speed the time when men and women find out how little money it requires to sustain the body in good health and keep the brain clear and the eye bright. The heavy drinker is today looked upon with pity and scorn. The time will come when the heavy eater will be similarly regarded. Once you find the delight of a simple diet, the benefit to body and mind and purse and life will assume new interest, and toil will be robbed of its drudgery, for it will cease to be a mere matter of toiling for a bare existence. Again, are you unhappy? Stop and ask yourself why. If you have a great sorrow, time will be your consoler, and there is an ennobling and enriching effect of sorrow well borne. It is the education of the soul. But if you are unhappy over petty worries and trials, you are wearing yourself to no avail. And if you are allowing small things to irritate and harass you and to spoil the beautiful days for you, take yourself in hand and change your ways. You can do it if you choose. It is pitiful to observe what sort of troubles most unhappy people are afflicted with. I have seen a beautiful young woman grow care-lined and faded just from imagining she was being slighted or neglected by her acquaintances. Someone nodded coldly to her. Another one spoke superciliously. A third failed to invite her. A fourth did not pay her a call, and so on. Always a grievance to relate until one is prepared to look sympathetic at the sight of her. And such petty grievances for this great good life to be marred by, and all the result of her own disposition. Had she chosen to look for appreciation and attention and goodwill, she would have found it everywhere. Then, about your temper. Is it flying loose over a trifle? Are you making yourself and everyone else wretched if a chair is out of place, or a meal a moment late, or some member of the family is tardy at dinner, or your shoestring is in a tangle, or your collar button mislaid? Do you go to pieces nervously if you are obliged to repeat a remark to someone who did not understand you? I have known a home to be ruined by just such infinitesimal annoyances. It is a habit, like the drug or alcohol habit, this irritability. All you need do is to stop it. Keep your voice from rising, and speak slowly and calmly. When you feel yourself giving way to it, realize how ridiculous and disagreeable you will be if you continue. What an unlovely and hideous old age you are preparing for yourself, and realize that a loose temper is a sign of vulgarity and lack of culture. Think of the value of each day of life, how much it means, and what possibilities of happiness and usefulness it contains if well spent. But if you stuff yourself like an anaconda, dwell on the small worries, and grow angry at the least trifle, you are committing as great and inexcusable a folly as if you flung your furniture and garments and food and fuel into the sea in a spirit of wanton cruelty. You are wasting life for nothing. Every sick, gloomy day you pass is a sin against life. Get health, be cheerful, keep calm. Clear your mind of every gloomy, selfish, angry, or revengeful thought. Allow no resentment or grudge toward man or fate to stay in your heart overnight. Wake in the morning with a blessing for every living thing on your lips and in your soul. Say to yourself, health, luck, usefulness, success are mine. I claim them. Keep thinking that thought, no matter what happens, just as you would put one foot before another if you had a mountain to climb. Keep on, and suddenly you will find you are on the heights, luck beside you. Whoever follows this recipe cannot fail of happiness, good fortune, and a useful life. But saying the words over once and then drifting back to anger, selfishness, revenge, and gloom will do no good. The words must be said over and over, and thought and lived when not said. End of section 12. Literature. The world is full of New Thought literature. It is helpful and inspiring to read. It is worth many dollars to anyone who will live its philosophy. I talked to a man who has been studying along these lines for some years. "Oh, I know all that philosophy," he said. "It is nothing new. I am perfectly familiar with it." Yet this man was continually allowing himself to grow angry over the least trifle. He was quick to see and speak of the faults in others. He was demanding more of those he associated with in the way of consideration and justice than he was willing to give, and he was untidy in his person and improvident in his use of money. Now, it is the merest waste of time for this man to read New Thought literature or practice deep breathing, since he will not put into daily and hourly practice what is taught by the new religion. He is like the Orthodox Christian who mumbles through the Lord's Prayer and then goes forth to do exactly as he would not be done by in business, social, and domestic life. Man is what he thinks, not what he says, reads, or hears. By persistent thinking, you can undo any condition which exists. You can free yourself from any chains, whether of poverty, sin, ill health, or unhappiness. If you have been thinking these thoughts half a lifetime, you must not expect to batter down the walls you have built in a week or a month or a year. You must work and wait, and grow discouraged and stumble and pick yourself up and go on again. You cannot in an hour gain control over a temper which you have let fly loose for 20 years, but you can control it eventually and learn to think of a burst of anger as a vulgarity like drunkenness or profanity, something you could not descend to. If you have allowed yourself to think despondent thoughts and believe that poverty and sickness were your portion for years, it will take time to train your mind to more cheerful and hopeful ideas. But you can do it by repeated assertions and by reading and thinking and living the beautiful New Thought philosophy. End of section 13. Optimism. Not long ago, I read the following gloomy bit of pessimism from the pen of a man bright enough to know better than to add to the mental malaria of the world. He said, "Life is a hopeless battle in which we are foredoomed to defeat, and the prize for which we strive to have and to hold, what is it? A thing that is neither enjoyed while had, nor missed when lost. So worthless it is, so unsatisfying, so inadequate to purpose, so false to hope, and at its best so brief, that for consolation and compensation we set up fantastic feasts of an after-time in a better world, from which no confirming whisper has ever reached us out of the void. Heaven is a prophecy uttered by the lips of despair, but hell is an inference from history." This is morbid and unwholesome talk, which can do no human being any good to utter or listen to, but it can depress and discourage the weak and struggling souls who are striving to make the best of circumstances, and it can nerve to suicide the hand of some half-crazed being who needed only a word of encouragement and cheer to brace up and win the race. This is the unpardonable sin, to talk discouragingly to human souls hungering for hope. When the man without brains does it, he can be pardoned for knowing no better. When the man with brains does it, he should be ashamed to look his fellow mortals in the eyes. It is a sin 10 times deeper dyed than giving a stone to those who ask for bread. It is giving poison to those who plead for a cup of cold water. Fortunately, the remarks above quoted contain not one atom of truth. The writer may speak for himself, but he has no right to speak for others. It is all very well for a man who is marked with smallpox to say his face has not one unscarred inch on the surface of it, but he has no premises to stand upon when he says there is not a face in the world which is free from smallpox scars. Life is not a hopeless battle in which we are doomed to defeat. Life is a glorious privilege, and we can make anything we choose of it if we begin early and are in deep earnest and realize our own divine powers. Nothing can hinder us or stay us. We can do and be whatsoever we will. The price of life is not a thing which is neither enjoyed while had nor missed when lost. It is enjoyed by millions of souls today. This great price of life, I for one declare that for every day of misery in my existence, I have had a week of joy and happiness. For every hour of pain, I have had a day of pleasure. For every moment of worry, an hour of content. I cannot be the only soul so endowed with the appreciation of life. I know scores of happy people who enjoy the many delights of earth, and there are thousands whom I do not know. Of course, life is not missed when lost, because it is never lost. It is indestructible. Life ever was and ever will be. It is a continuous performance. It is not worthless to the wholesome, normal mind. It is full of interest and rich with opportunities for usefulness. When any man says his life is worthless, it is because he has eyes and sees not, and ears and hears not. It is his own fault, not the fault of God, fate, or accident. If every life seems at times unsatisfactory and inadequate, it is only due to the cry of the immortal soul longing for larger opportunities and fewer limitations. Neither is life false to hope. He who trusts the divine source of life shall find his hopes more than realized here upon earth. I but voice the knowledge of thousands of souls. When I make this assertion, I know whereof I speak. All that our dearest hopes desire will come to us if we believe in ourselves as rightful heirs to divine opulence and work and think always on those lines. If no whisper has ever reached us out of the void, confirming our faith in immortality, then 1/3 of the seemingly intelligent and sane beings of our acquaintance must be fools or liars, for we have the assertion of fully this number that such whispers have come, besides the biblical statistics of numerous messages from the other realm, as it was in the beginning, is now, and shall be evermore, world without end. Amen. End of section 14. Preparation. Every day I hear middle-aged people bemoaning the fact that they were not given advantages or did not seize the opportunities for an education in early youth. They believe that their lives would be happier, better, and more useful had an education been obtained. Scarcely one of these people realizes that middle life is the school time for old age, and that just as important an opportunity is being missed or ignored day by day for the storing up of valuable knowledge, which will be of great importance in rendering old age endurable. Youth is the season to acquire knowledge. Middle life is the time to acquire wisdom. Old age is the season to enjoy both, but wisdom is far the more important of the two. By wisdom, I mean the philosophy which enables us to control our tempers, curb our tendency to severe criticism, and cultivate our sympathies. The majority of people after 35 consider themselves privileged to be cross, irritable, critical, and severe, because they have lived longer than the young, because they have had more trials and disappointments, and because they believe they understand the world better. Those are excellent reasons why they should be patient, kind, broad, and sympathetic. The longer we live, the more we should realize the folly and vulgarity of ill temper, the cruelty of severe criticism, and the necessity for a broad-minded view of life, manners, morals, and customs. Unless we adapt ourselves to the changing habits of the world, unless we adopt some of the new ideas that are constantly coming to the front, we will find ourselves carping disagreeable and lonely old people as the years go by. The world will not stand still for us. Society will not wear the same clothes, or follow the same pleasures, or think the same thoughts when we are 80 that were prevalent when we were 30. We must keep moving with the world, or stand still and solitary. After 30, we must seize every hour and educate ourselves to grow into agreeable old age. It requires at least 20 years to become well educated in book and college lore. If we begin to study at 7, we are rarely through with all our common schools, seminaries, high schools, and colleges have to offer under a score of years. The education for old age needs fully as many years. We need to begin at 30 to be tolerant, patient, serene, trustful, sympathetic, and liberal. Then at 50, we may hope to have graduated with honors from life's school of wisdom, and to be prepared for another score or two of years of usefulness and enjoyment in the practice of these qualities. Instead of wasting our time in bemoaning the loss of early opportunities for obtaining an education, let us devote ourselves to the cultivation of wisdom, since that is free to all who possess self-control, will-power, faith, and perseverance. Begin today, at home. Be more tolerant of the faults of the other members of your household. Restrain your criticisms on the conduct of your neighbors. Try and realize the causes which led some people who have gone wrong to err. Look for the admirable qualities in everyone you meet. Sympathize with the world. Be interested in progress. Be interested in the young. Keep in touch with each new generation, and do not allow yourself to grow old in thought or feeling. Educate yourself for a charming old age. There is no time to lose. End of section 15.